Selenium's tool suite are Selenium components. See, we have 4 tools in Selenium suite, or you can say Selenium components. 4 Selenium components. What are they? First one, list out Supriya. Selenium components are Selenium suite of tools. Supriya. Ritesh. Ritesh.
Yes, sir. Selenium IDE.
Good. Selenium
Yes.
IDE, Integrated Development Environment. Integrated.
Uh,
Just a minute. Integrated Development Environment. This is Selenium IDE. Next.
Selenium WebDriver or
Selenium
Selenium
RC.
RC.
Sequence.
Yeah.
Selenium
Selenium RC.
RC. RC stands for Remote Control. Remote Control. Next.
Selenium WebDriver.
Yes, Selenium WebDriver. Selenium WebDriver. Next, last one.
Uh,
Selenium Grid.
Selenium Grid.
Grid.
Selenium Grid. Okay, first I am taking Selenium IDE. See, I will provide brief introduction about Selenium IDE and other Selenium tools. Anyhow, we will discuss in detailed manner in future chapters. Just a brief introduction. Selenium IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Environment. First, what is Selenium IDE? It is a Firefox browser add-on. See, it is a Firefox browser. Firefox browser add-on. See, works only on a Firefox browser. Used to create and execute test cases. Say in UFT, formerly QTP, term is test or test script. No test case term in QTP. Test or test script. In Selenium, test case term is test case, as like manual testing, or you can say test script. Synonyms. See, in Selenium you can call test cases or test scripts. Okay. Say Selenium IDE features. Selenium IDE features. What are the important IDE features? Create test cases and test suites, means test batches. Create test cases and test suites. See how we create test cases in Selenium IDE. We can record test cases or type test steps using element locators and Selenium commands. Selenium IDE commands are called as Selenium commands. See, if you know the syntax, you can type the test steps or you can record the navigation. While recording, it generates test steps. Selenium IDE generates test steps. See, we can record test cases or type test steps using element locators. Element means object. Element locators are used to identify the object. Element locators and Selenium commands. Selenium, it's not dictionary word. Selenium commands. See, Selenium IDE commands are called as Selenium commands. Selenium IDE commands. Selenium commands are Selenium IDE commands. See, somebody's making noise. Avoid that one. Suleiman. Did you join Suleiman? Who is that Android attendee? Suleiman. Okay. People not responding properly. Next.
Yeah, I'm joining now.
Okay, Suleiman. Okay. See, create test cases and test suites. Next, edit test cases. Next, just a minute. Edit test cases. Next, execute test cases. See, these are the features of Selenium IDE. Execute test cases and test suites. Next, debug test cases. See, by step execution, we can debug test cases in order to locate errors. See, in order to locate errors, we debug tests. Through step execution, we can debug test cases. Next, enhance test cases by inserting comments, by adding comments, by inserting verification points. You can enhance test cases. Next, export test cases to other formats. See, Selenium IDE test case default format is HTML. You can export test cases to other formats, Java, Ruby, etc., supporting formats, but that feature is not working properly. Feature is there, purpose also there, but not working properly. Anyhow, in real time, we don't use Selenium IDE, just idea. See, export test cases to other formats, other supported formats. For example, Java, Ruby, etc. Next, default format. Observe, Suleiman, what is the default format of Selenium IDE test case? Selenium IDE test case. Default format.
What format? I don't know.
Just now I mentioned. Can you tell me, Ritesh?
Java, sir.
Just now I mentioned. Mrinal, default format
60.
of
HTML.
HTML. See, HTML. Concentrate, Ritesh, concentrate. See, these are the important features of Selenium IDE. Madhavi, tell me, Madhavi, what are the important features of Selenium IDE tool?
Create test cases and test suites. Edit test cases. Execute test cases and test suites. Debug test cases. Enhance test cases. Export test cases, which is default is HTML.
Yes. Next, drawbacks of Selenium IDE. Drawbacks. Drawbacks of Selenium IDE. Dilpreet, guess drawbacks of Selenium IDE. One or two drawbacks.
We cannot do data-driven testing with Selenium IDE.
Okay.
And
Cannot do data-driven testing. Okay. Any other? You observe the first point. Just a minute. You observe the first point. It is a Firefox browser add-on. See,
so we can. Yeah.
It works only on
Firefox
browser. Observe, Selenium IDE is not an independent tool like UFT or RFT or Silk test. It is not an independent tool. What is independent tool? For example, UFT. You can download UFT and install. And then you can launch UFT tool, create tests and execute tests. But Selenium IDE is not an independent tool. If you want to launch or install Selenium IDE, first launch Mozilla Firefox browser, then download and install. For launching Selenium IDE also, first you have to launch Firefox browser, then you can launch Selenium IDE. Means you cannot use Selenium IDE without Firefox browser. Getting this point, Saloni?
Yes, sir.
We cannot use Selenium IDE without Firefox browser. If it is UFT or RFT or Silk test, you can use them individually. But it is Firefox plugin. Here you can find one drawback. It doesn't support other browsers. It works only on Firefox browser. Firefox browser. Doesn't support other browsers. This is one major drawback. Next, somebody told na, Dilpreet. You told na?
Yes, sir. Data-driven testing cannot be performed with Selenium IDE.
Why?
Because it's record and play, so you'll be only having one data at that time.
Say for data-driven testing, resource is required. In this scenario, resource means test data file. If you want to work with data files, programming features required. See here, no programming. Selenium IDE doesn't support any programming. Observe, it doesn't support programming. See, it doesn't support any programming. So we cannot use programming logic to enhance test cases. So we can't use programming logic to enhance test cases. To enhance test cases. Next, it doesn't support data-driven testing. It doesn't support data-driven testing. Why? For data-driven testing, resource required. Test data file is resource in this scenario. We cannot communicate with any files. If it is Selenium WebDriver can communicate with external files and databases with the help of Java. But Selenium Ide doesn't communicate with any files. So data-driven testing is not possible. Next, it is just a prototyping tool. It is not suitable for complex test case design. It is not suitable. It is not suitable for complex test case design. Why? No programming logic. Next, here no centralized maintenance of objects. If it is UFT, formerly QTP, object repository concept is there. Object repository feature is there. Shared repositories, local repositories. By using shared object repositories, we can maintain objects information in a centralized location. But here no repository concept. So no centralized maintenance. No centralized maintenance of elements of our objects. See, these are the major drawbacks of Selenium Ide. Tell me, Madhumati, drawbacks of Selenium Ide tool. Madhumati. Madhumati, can you hear me? Supriya.
Yes, sir.
Drawbacks of Selenium Ide.
It supports only Firefox browser
Yes,
only.
it supports only Firefox browser. Next.
No programming support.
Yes, no programming support, so we cannot use programming features to enhance test cases. Next.
It doesn't support data-driven testing.
Yes. Next.
It is a prototype tool.
It is a
so
prototype tool.
It cannot use for the
It is not
complex
used for
test case
it is
design.
not suitable for complex test case design. It is only for simple test case design. Next. No centralized maintenance of elements or objects. Okay, na Saloni? Saloni, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay. Next, we no need to discuss this one. Selenium Rc. It is outdated. Nobody is using nowadays. Say Selenium Rc supports programming. You can use Java, C#, Python, Perl, Ruby, etc. Selenium Rc supports various browsers, various operating environments like MS, Windows, Linux, etc. But nowadays it is outdated. Successor of Selenium Rc is Selenium WebDriver. You disconnect and connect again, Madhavi, Madhumati, not Madhavi. Selenium WebDriver. See, Selenium Rc having features like almost all Selenium WebDriver. See, come to this one. Selenium WebDriver. Selenium WebDriver. Powerful tool in Selenium suite. Or you can say it is powerful component of Selenium. Powerful tool in Selenium suite. Okay. Using Selenium WebDriver tool only, you can automate your entire project. See, what is Selenium WebDriver? It is a programming interface to create and execute test cases. It doesn't have any IDE. See, anyhow, it is just an introduction chapter. In Selenium WebDriver chapter, we will discuss all features and drawbacks and practical concepts also. Here only brief introduction. Just restrict to brief introduction. Again, we will discuss Selenium WebDriver features and drawbacks and environment setup and practical concepts, means creating and executing test cases. Okay, here only brief introduction. See, it is a programming interface. It is a programming interface to create and execute test cases. It is a programming interface to create and execute test cases. It doesn't have any IDE, only editor for writing programs. For example, Selenium IDE. IDE has IDE. What is IDE? Integrated Development Environment. Selenium IDE has menus and menu items. But in Selenium WebDriver, no menus, no menu items, no tool features, recording or checkpoints or any other, no tool features. It is only programming interface. For each and everything, we need to write the code. Just a minute. Programming interface is powerful than IDE. Suppose if we have IDE apart from programming interface, that is an added advantage. But without IDE also, we can perform all testing tasks using programming interface. But using IDE, we can't perform all testing tasks. Programming interface is powerful. IDE, that is ready-made environment. Observe, Selenium IDE has IDE, integrated development environment only, but no programming interface. Next, Selenium WebDriver has programming interface only. Programming interface only, but no IDE, no menus, no menu items, but no IDE. Next, UFT, another tool, market competitor. formerly QTP. Can you tell me, Mrinal, UFT? What about UFT? UFT has programming interface or integrated development environment, IDE?
It has IDE.
Both IDE
It has I
as well as
and
programming interface. You can use VB script
yes.
code na.
Yes.
Yes, UFT, formerly QTP, has both IDE as well as programming interface. Programming interface. For example, if you want to create tests in UFT, you can use UFT tool features like recording, checkpoints, etc. Otherwise, you can directly use a descriptive code. You can type descriptive script. Next, instead of checkpoints, you can use VB script conditional statements. Suppose if you want to conduct data-driven testing in UFT, UFT has an integrated spreadsheet data table for data-driven testing. You can use that tool feature, or you can use VB script feature. You can import test data from external files using VB script and connect. Say in UFT, you can use either tool features or programming features, or both, some tool features and some programming features to create tests. But in Selenium WebDriver, no tool features, only programming features. In Selenium IDE, no programming features support, only tool features. Getting this point, Madhavi?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next, but I already mentioned, using programming features, you can perform all types of testing tasks. But creating test cases takes some time, some difficulty also, but you can perform any operation using programming features. Okay. Generally, IDE means that is ready-made environment. Ready-made environments have limitations, but programming logic doesn't have any limitation. Okay. Next, already we discussed Selenium IDE, no programming support. No, Selenium IDE doesn't support any programming, but Selenium WebDriver supports various programming languages to write programs. Say, Selenium WebDriver. Selenium WebDriver supports various programming languages, various programming environments to write programs. Here programs means test scripts. See, in this scenario, program means test script. You know, Selenium WebDriver supporting programming languages. Suleiman, what are the programming languages that Selenium WebDriver supports? Suleiman.
We have C Sharp. We have Perl. Ruby. Java. Yeah.
Okay. See, first Java. Why most of the Selenium testers using Java? Nearly 77%. Okay, no sequence. Java. It supports Java. Next, .NET. In .NET, C#, .NET. Not VB.NET, ASP.NET. C#, .NET. .NET is suite of technologies. In .NET suite, C sharp is the one of the technology. C sharp. Next, Python. Python. Next, Perl. Next, Ruby and PHP. Hypertext Preprocessor. PHP. See, you can use any one of the languages. Most of the Selenium testers using Java. Next, Selenium WebDriver supports various browsers. Selenium WebDriver supports various browsers. Observe, Madhavi, what is the default browser of Selenium? Default browser.
Firefox.
Firefox. Okay. Why Firefox is default browser? That I will explain in practical chapter. Just remember, Firefox is default browser of Selenium. See, it supports Mozilla. Just a minute. Mozilla Firefox. It supports all popular browsers. Next, Google Chrome. Next, Internet Explorer. Next, Safari, Opera, etc. Next, Selenium WebDriver supports various operating environments. Operating environments. See, popular operating environments. Microsoft Windows. Next, Linux. Next, Mac, Macintosh, etc. Whereas UFT, formerly QTP, supports Microsoft Windows operating environment only. It doesn't support other environments, other operating environments. Next, how we write test cases in Selenium WebDriver. See, using element locators. See, element means object. For example, edit box, link, button, radio button, checkbox, combo box, frame, web table, etc. Locator, suppose edit box is element. ID of element. ID of edit box is locator. For example, observe here three things. Just a minute, I will explain. Using element locators and WebDriver commands. WebDriver commands, or you can say methods. WebDriver commands or methods. We can create test cases. Element. Next, another name, object. Software object. Locator. Next, locator in UFT, no locator term, property. It is an attribute of the object which describes the object. Next, value. For example, edit box. Just a minute. edit box is element or button is element. Button is element. Locator, see it supports 8 element locators. We can use any one unique locator. Anyhow, that we will discuss in practical chapters. Just a minute. See, observe. Here one button is there. Next button is there. Next button. See, place mouse pointer and right click. Inspect. Where is that one? Page inspector. Just a minute. Inspect element. See, place mouse pointer on web page and right click. Inspect element. See, take the pointer and show the button. Observe Saloni. ID. What is the ID value? Observe left side bottom. Blue color marking.
Next.
Next. This ID is locator. Next is
Property.
value. ID is property only.
Okay, yeah.
Locator or property. Next is value, isn't it?
Yes.
Next, I will show one more example. Observe. Suppose edit box is there. Enter your email. Edit box is there. So I am using another inspector. This is a FirePath. This is also Mozilla plugin, or you can say add-on. Take mouse pointer. Observe here ID email. Otherwise, you can use name also. Name also one of the locator. Name value of the name. What is the name value, Saloni? Email. See, observe. Edit box. Suppose name is the locator, value is email. Did you understand the concept, Madhavi? Element, locator and value.
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, in general orientation, suppose man is or dog. Dog is element. General example. Suppose locator. Suppose height of the dog is one property. Suppose 30 centimeters is the value. You can use any one unique. Suppose color of the dog. Suppose white. White is value. Suppose man is object or element. Name is property or locator. Name. Some ABCD. ABCD is the value. See, for man object, name is one locator, surname, height, weight, width, color, etc. Okay, this is about element, locator and value. Next, say element locators, using element locators and WebDriver commands. What is the use of WebDriver commands? To perform operations on elements. Suppose we are recognizing the edit box element using name locator value. Name locator value email. Okay, element locator for recognizing or identifying the object. Next, performing operation. Suppose enter a value into edit box. That is the responsibility of WebDriver command or method. Getting the point, Mrinal?
Yes, sir.
What is the purpose of element locator?
To identify the element.
Next, WebDriver in this scenario. WebDriver command or method. What is the purpose?
To perform the operation
Ah,
on the element.
yes. See, to identify, to identify or recognize the element. Next, to perform operation on the element. Suppose here element
Of
operation. Observe
I have a
Ritesh,
question.
element versus operation. Earlier element locator. Here element is edit box. What is the primary operation on edit box?
Input text.
Enter a value or input data. Enter value. Say entering a value. This is primary operation on edit box. Say functional test automation tools are object based tools. For example, Selenium or UFT, you take any functional and regression test tool. They conduct test operations based on front-end objects. Okay, some exemptions are there. For database testing, no front-end object reference required. Using SQL, we can communicate with back-end databases. For database testing, no front-end object reference is required. But for remaining operations, front-end object is required. So you take any functional and regression test tool. They are object-based test tools. Suppose performance test tool, load runner, etc. Performance test tools are protocol-based test tools. Protocol-based. For example, HTTP, HTTPS, ODBC, JDBC, etc. protocols. See, functional test tools, object-based test tools, performance test tools, protocol-based test tools. For example, test management tools or defect management tools. Tell me, Mamata, what is the base for test management tools?
So,
Functional test tools, object-based tools, just idea, general idea. Performance test tools,
maintain the,
protocol-based
okay,
test management tools.
to maintain the all business requirements
I
and the
am
functional
asking base,
requirements.
not purpose or functionality. What is the base? Functional testing, functional test tools, object-based test tools. Based on front-end objects, they conduct test operations. Performance test tools, protocol-based. Dilpreet, for test management tools and defect management tools, what is the base? No base. See, functional test tools execute the application. Performance test tools execute the application, but test management tools won't execute the application, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
See, test management tools and defect management tools only for documentation and for generating reports. They don't interact with software applications, but functional test tools and performance test tools interact with software
Application.
applications. Okay, na?
Yes, sir.
Okay, edit box, entering a value. Continue, Ritesh. Suppose button. What is the primary operation on button?
Click
Click.
or double click.
Okay. Next, primary operation on link. Secondary operations are there. that we will discuss in elements handling chapter. Just a brief idea. Link also click.
Click.
Next, actually here button click, but operation name is submit. Okay. Next, Madhavi, checkbox,
Select.
select. Select, if already selected, unselect. Next, if it is drop down box, Mrinal, drop down box,
Select.
select an item.
Yeah, select.
Select an item. Okay. See, using element locators and WebDriver commands or methods, we create test cases in Selenium WebDriver. Selenium WebDriver.
Sir, I have a question. Like, if you are using, there are so many buttons on the one page that you are testing, then the element locator should be unique on which you want to use,
Yes.
right?
Ah.
Okay, so we have to check the properties of each
Yes.
button and
We need to
find
first
out
we need
the
to inspect the elements and take unique locator for every element.
okay.
Okay, that we will discuss in practical chapters. Selenium WebDriver, creating test cases in Selenium WebDriver. First we have to inspect the elements and take unique locator. Suppose if IDs are duplicate, names are duplicate, all locators are duplicate, then you take X path, that is XY coordinates, that object location. See, object location most of the time unique na. Suppose two buttons with same names, with same size, same properties, but locations different na.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anyhow, it's not time to discuss that concept. In Selenium WebDriver practical chapter, we will discuss. We have to take unique locator, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Any query? Why you are in dull mood? Tell me.
No, I understand, sir.
Okay, cool,
I
cool.
got it. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Say next, drawbacks. Drawbacks of Selenium WebDriver. Drawbacks of Selenium WebDriver. See, we discussed the advantages or features of Selenium WebDriver. It supports various operating environments. WebDriver supports various browser environments. WebDriver supports various programming environments to write test cases. Next, some drawbacks also. Can you tell me one or two drawbacks, Saloni? Drawbacks of Selenium WebDriver? Just guess, otherwise I will explain.
No ID features.
Good. First one, no Selenium IDE, Selenium WebDriver. Selenium WebDriver has no integrated development environment. What is the problem of this one? Suppose it doesn't have IDE, then what is the problem? Tell me, Saloni, what is the problem? Okay, it doesn't have IDE, then what is the problem? You can
Like we can't create.
we can
We can't record or type test cases or edit test cases if it doesn't have.
We can conduct all operations using programming interface, but time taking process. No IDE. If it is tool features are easy to use. Programming features difficult to use. So, creating test cases. Creating test cases is some difficult, not much, and takes more time. This is one drawback. Next, Mamata. Okay. Here, one major drawback of Selenium WebDriver, it doesn't have any built-in result reporting facility. If it is UFT, formerly QTP, UFT has Mamata put mute. UFT has result reporting facility. Result viewer feature is there in UFT. Result viewer. UFT provides test result for every test iteration. Test iteration means cycle of execution. Suppose one test is there. If you execute the test for 4 times, 4 test results. UFT provides test result for every test iteration. And one more thing, user can define own result in UFT using VB script features. UFT has built-in feature, otherwise you can define your own result. Okay. But Selenium WebDriver doesn't have any result reporting facility. Then how to report, how to create test reports? Okay. Using either JUnit or TestNG frameworks, we can overcome this drawback. That we will discuss later. Just observe the drawbacks. Selenium WebDriver, no result reporting, no built-in result reporting facility. Result reporting facility. This is one drawback. Next, it doesn't have an integrated spreadsheet for data-driven testing. If it is UFT, formerly QTP, QTP having integrated spreadsheet for data-related operations. It doesn't have an integrated spreadsheet. Just a minute. For data related operations. Here important one is data driven testing. See, these are the major drawbacks of Selenium WebDriver. And it is not readily support new versions of browser. Takes time. Latest versions. It is not readily support latest versions of browsers. Tell me, Suleiman, we discussed Selenium WebDriver features. Brief introduction only. Selenium WebDriver features as well as drawbacks. First you tell me what are the important features of Selenium WebDriver?
First important feature is that Selenium WebDriver is a programming interface. So we can use programming languages to create tests and execute tests. And then Selenium WebDriver supports multiple browsers like first with the first
Mozilla
one is
Firefox, Google Chrome, IE, Safari, Opera, etc. Next.
yes, and it supports multiple languages.
It
Like
supports
Java.
various don't use multiple term, multiple, okay.
Oh,
It supports
yeah.
various programming languages. We have to use any one of the language.
Yeah.
It supports various programming, it supports various operating environments.
Operating environments.
For example, Microsoft
like,
Windows, Linux, Macintosh, etc. Okay,
yeah.
okay, good. Next, Ritesh, drawbacks of Selenium WebDriver.
It doesn't have the IDE, so it's difficult to write a test.
Yes, it doesn't have IDE, means no tool features, only programming features. So it is difficult to write test cases and takes writing test cases takes more time. Next.
Yes. It doesn't have the built-in
built-in result reporting. No built-in result reporting. Okay, na?
Yes.
Next.
No built-in.
No built-in result reporting.
And
Next.
It doesn't have an integrated spreadsheet for data-driven testing.
Yes, it doesn't have an integrated spreadsheet for data-driven testing. Okay. Okay, Namrenal. Selenium WebDriver features and drawbacks.
Yes.
Okay. Next, one more tool, Selenium Grid. Selenium Grid. Actually, it is Selenium Grid not for test design. Selenium Grid doesn't support test design. It supports only test execution. Say Selenium Grid. Selenium Grid for parallel. Selenium Grid for parallel test execution. Okay. No test design. No test design in Selenium Grid. Only test execution in Selenium Grid. Say Selenium Grid executes test cases across multiple browsers, operating environments, and machines in parallel so that we can reduce the execution time. For example, we have 100 test cases. As per customer requirement, we have to execute all these 100 cases using Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome, and IE. Say, suppose 100 test cases execution taking 10 hours. For Mozilla Firefox 10 hours, Google Chrome approximately 10 hours, IE also approximately 10 hours. Total 10 into 3, 30 hours. If we use Selenium Grid, in 10 hours only you can execute all these 100 test cases using 3 different browsers. You take 3 missions, you distribute the tests. First mission 100 test cases using Google Chrome, second mission 100 test cases using Mozilla Firefox, third mission same test cases using IE browser. What is the primary advantage of Selenium Grid, Saloni?
For parallel test
By parallel test execution, we can reduce the test execution time now.
Yes.
We can distribute test cases so that we can reduce the execution time. See, Selenium Grid. Selenium Grid executes test cases test cases across multiple browsers. Next, operating environments. And machines. Machine means computer in this scenario. Machines in parallel, so that we can reduce the execution time. Otherwise, you can use Selenium WebDriver only for execution, no issue. And one more thing, here no test design. How to create test cases? You create test cases using Selenium WebDriver or Selenium Rc. Selenium Rc nowadays outdated. You create test cases using Selenium WebDriver and execute them in parallel using Selenium Grid. See, Selenium Grid 2.0 supports Selenium Rc test cases, Selenium Rc test cases, and Selenium WebDriver test cases. WebDriver test cases, but no Selenium IDE test cases. Selenium 1 supports only Selenium Rc. After that, Selenium WebDriver merged. Then Selenium Grid 2 supports Selenium Rc test cases and Selenium WebDriver test cases. See here, conclusion. Create test cases using Selenium WebDriver. If you want to execute test cases in parallel, use Selenium Grid for parallel test case execution. Otherwise, you can use Selenium WebDriver only for executing tests one by one. Okay. See, this is a brief introduction about Selenium suite of tools or Selenium components. And one more thing, yesterday only I told you focus on three things. Supriya, continue. Focus on, yesterday only explained, focus on three things. Test automation using Selenium. What are the three things? Just a minute. Test automation using Selenium. Continue, Supriya. Madhumati, can you hear me, Madhumati?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm Supriya. Sorry. Yes.
Supriya, continue.
Selenium WebDriver.
First, Selenium WebDriver. Selenium WebDriver.
WebDriver. To recognize
Selenium WebDriver. What is the purpose of Selenium WebDriver? Okay. To create test cases. To create test cases. To create and execute. To create and execute test cases using
identify
element locators and WebDriver
methods.
Commands or methods, synonyms in this scenario only. But method is different, command is different in general orientation, but in this scenario, synonyms. Next, continues Supriya.
Java programming.
Yes, Java programming. Java programming. What is the purpose of Java programming in this scenario?
To enhance the test cases.
To enhance test cases. What is enhancing test cases? Enhancing test cases means, see, updating test cases is different. Enhancing test cases is different. Updating means, suppose any changes in requirements, generally we update test cases. But enhancing test cases is different. Enhancing test cases means inserting verification points, synchronization, parameterization if required, error handling, etc. with respect to test requirements. What is enhancing test cases? Inserting verification points. Next, parameterization if required. Say for every test case, verification point is mandatory, but parameterization optional. Only for some test cases, parameterization required. Next, synchronization. Synchronization also same. Only for some test cases, not for all test cases. But verification points for all test cases. Next, error handling. Next, adding comments, adding meaningful comments, etc. Okay, continue, Supriya. Next one.
TestNG, testing framework.
Yes, TestNG, testing framework. What is the purpose of TestNG framework in this scenario?
To group the test cases, execute the test batches.
Just a minute. To group, otherwise just a minute, important task. Grouping test cases. Next, executing
the
test batches
and generate test report.
Generate test reports. See, these are the important tasks. Next, this one. Parallel test execution also possible, but using single machine only. It creates different nodes. Parallel test execution, data-driven testing,
So parallel test execution will happen without Selenium Grid?
Yes, without Selenium Grid. With Selenium, just I will explain. Who is asking that question?
Mrinal.
Just Mrinal. Just observe.
Okay.
Observe. You know what is parallel test execution? Parallel.
Yes.
Parallel test execution. Parallel test execution. Using Selenium Grid. Here we use multiple missions. See, observe, I already told now multiple missions. See, multiple missions. Next, parallel test execution using, just a minute. Parallel test execution using Selenium WebDriver plus TestNG. TestNG using single mission. Suppose if you have I configured system, you can create multiple nodes. See, program will create. By using multiple nodes, you can execute, but single machine.
Okay.
Here, multiple machines. Find the difference between these two?
Yes, single
Which
machine.
one is better? Multiple machines better na? You can distribute load on multiple computers na?
Yes.
Okay, if it is simple parallel test execution, you can use WebDriver plus TestNG, but it uses single machine, creates multiple nodes internally. Suppose some test cases on node 1, some test cases on node 2, some test cases on node 3. But in Selenium Grid, multiple machines. That is the difference.
Okay.
Okay. Say this is a brief introduction about Selenium components. Brief introduction. Any queries, Saloni? Shall we move to next?